Hey everyone, my name is Reggie and welcome to my channel. Today I'm really excited to be sharing with you my March wrap-up. So these are all of the books I read in the month of March. In the month of March, I finished 7 books and I'm currently reading 3 more. If you're new here and you haven't already subscribed to my channel, I definitely recommend doing that. I post new bookish videos every week. So I normally go through my wrap-ups by my least favorite to my most favorite, and I'm definitely going to be doing that this month as well because I love doing them in that format. But I'm also going to tell you the 3 books I'm currently reading first, just to get them out of the way. So I'm currently reading Wire and Nerve, Volume 1 by Marissa Meyer. This is the graphic novel that is the continuation of the Lunar Chronicles series. I'm loving this so far. I just haven't had a lot of chances to pick it up, which is why I haven't finished it yet. I'm also listening to the audiobook Thunderhead, which is the sequel to Scythe, and I did read Scythe this month, so we'll be talking about that later in this video. And I'm also currently reading Starry Eyes by Jen Bennett, which is an arc that comes out on the 3rd, and I just wanted to finish that so I could get a review up for you guys, so keep an eye on my Goodreads. But now, without further ado, let's get into the 7 books I actually finished in the month of March. So we'll start off with my least favorite book I read in the month of March, and that is Every Day by David Levithan. I gave Every Day by David Levithan a 2 out of 5 stars. If you don't know what this book is about, it is about our main character A, who wakes up in a different body every day. And essentially, during that process, when we pick up the story, our main character falls in love with a person that they meet in one of their bodies, and every day they try to find their way to that person that they've fallen in love with and try to reconnect and kindle a romance. So it's this unique story that is kind of gender fluid, kind of gender ambiguous character falling in love, but with this added paranormal aspect that's separating them. I will say that our main character did bring up some good, interesting characteristics and points when it comes to gender fluidity. Our main character A can wake up in any body. They don't particularly identify themselves in their soul as one gender or sexuality or anything like that. They're not confined by those constructs, so that was interesting. I do think sometimes that was discussed was a little clunky or weird. I also think there was some fat shaming in the book. From what I've heard, it's not as bad as some of the fat shaming in other David Levithan's books. There is a day where A wakes up in the body of a person who is fat, and I just did not like the way that day played out. And overall, I didn't find a huge connection with the characters or the romance, and I didn't feel emotionally attached to the ending. The ending for a lot of people was very emotional, and I was just like, I don't really care. So that's kind of a problem. Next up is actually a book I recommended in my feminist recommendations video. I gave this book like 3.5, 3.75 stars, and this is the poetry collection The Witch Doesn't Burn in This One by Amanda Lovelace. I liked this poetry collection quite a lot, but I also had some like pretty substantial issues with it. I think it was too repetitive. I think it was too simplistic, but I think the like fire and the visceral language that Amanda Lovelace used in that was epic. I think the feminist ideas were perfect. I did read this as an arc, so I do want to thank the publishers for providing me a copy of that, but I did really enjoy my time reading this, and it's a really fast poetry collection to get through. I just, as you guys probably know, I'm not the biggest fan of modern poetry, so going into this I knew it probably wasn't going to be my cup of tea. I actually loved it way more than I thought it would be, but like I said, I had some issues with the way it was structured and the repetitiveness of it, so like 3.5, 4 stars. Next up, I will be talking about Renegades by Marissa Meyer. This was very interesting because this is her first non-fairy tale retelling type of story, so it was really nice to kind of see her take on a different kind of world and story. So in Renegades, we're in this futuristic world where basically there is the Renegades, which are a group of vigilante superheroes that are endorsed and supported by the government that go and kind of act as the law enforcement and the saviors and the this and the that, and they help the people. They're the heroes. And then we have a group of people who have the superpowers or super abilities or what have you and aren't a part of the Renegades. They are either just normal people of society, or we also follow a group of people who are actively trying to dismantle the Renegades and the way that government system works. We have 2 perspectives in this story. We follow one person who is in the Renegades and one person who is in the, I forgot what it's called and that's going to annoy me, but like the anti-Renegades basically. And And we follow the story as our character, Nova, who is not a fan of the Renegades, infiltrates the Renegades to try to figure out how to kind of dismantle them. And we see her perspective as she meets another character who is a part of the Renegades, and we see the story from each of their perspectives. It's very interesting. I like how it intertangles, and it was quite fun. I would say a lot of the story was building the world and the characters. I think that's something Marissa Meyer in particularly does very well, is character development and character growth and just character exploration. And that's a lot of what this book is. This is a duology, I believe. The second book comes out this fall, and I'm really excited to see where the story takes off from here, because I think we're going to get a lot more plot stuff going on in the second book. But I'm a huge fan of character growth and development, so I definitely loved this book. I loved seeing Nova in particular. She's such a unique and fun character. I really like this perspective of like anti-villains, and it's really interesting because the story really tackles like perspectives and how no one really thinks of themselves as the villain of the story, because Nova thinks what she's doing is good, the Renegades think what they're doing is good, and you see the pros and cons to each side of what they're doing from this like omniscient point of view you have as the reader. And I really like that. I mean, the perspectives aren't written in omniscient, it's first person, of course, but as a reader, since you're seeing the full picture, it feels omniscient. Besides the simplicity of that, I really like how it's tackling those ideas quite well. Really fun, excited to continue on with the series. I give a 4 out of 5 stars. Next up, I read Scythe by Neil Schusterman. Finally, this is a book that has been getting all of the rage on BookTube and in the bookish community recently, and with good reason. This is quite a fun dystopian story. I would say it's more utopia falling into dystopia, but that's semantics. I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars. In the book Scythe, we follow a utopia world, and basically in this world we've conquered every disease, death, etc. There are no issues. It's a utopia. However, because of overpopulation, etc., we do need to trim the population. That is the role of the Scythe. The Scythe is basically a bearer of death. They are a trained individual who will glean or kill people. Our story takes off as we meet 2 young characters as they are assigned to be apprentices to a Scythe. And their story takes up from there. We follow the story between both of their perspectives. But you're learning a lot about the world and the corruption of the Scythehood and the morals of the Scythehood and the issues that come with just that role of picking who to kill and who to not, and how they're kind of the scary person in this perfect world because a Scythe is the person who can kill you when nothing else can. While it's utopia, there's so many dynamic things going on behind the scenes in the Scythehood, in the Scythe world, that you get to see through our main characters' perspectives. And I really enjoyed this book. I really enjoyed kind of the thought process it puts you through, the dynamics of the characters. The world is very unique and interesting. I really like that. I'm reading the second book now, and I love it even more though. So I have high hopes for the rest of the series. I think it's a trilogy. Next up, I have a book that I am counting towards my Goodreads goal, and I did rate on Goodreads, but it's totally cheating, and I completely admit that. It's fine. I know it is. And I normally would not be that kind of person to put this kind of book on my Goodreads reading list and rate it, etc. But because of the political statement it makes, I'm definitely rating it on any website I can and talking about it when I can. So might as well include it in my wrap-up as well. And this is A Day in the Life of Marlon Bundo by Marlon Bundo with help from Jill Twiss. This is presented by John Oliver and the Last Week Tonight Show. So basically, if you haven't heard about this book, this is a picture book that John Oliver and his team put out in response to a book called Marlon Bundo and the Vice President, or something along those lines. To be honest, don't know the title of the original book. Marlon Bundo, for all intents and purposes, is the first bunny. He is the Vice President's bunny, or the Vice President's kid's bunny. But there's a lot of wrapped up in Pence and his beliefs about the LGBTQIA plus community, etc., etc. So John Oliver wrote this book in which Marlon Bundo falls in love with a male bunny and wants to marry him. So you can imagine the hilarity and drama that ensues when John Oliver announced this. This is a real book you can buy from Amazon. Actually, I think it's currently sold out on Amazon because it's selling so well. It definitely outsold Pence's picture book for children. Proceeds for this go towards the Trevor Project, which is an amazing organization. The audiobook is only like $2. Granted, it's only a 7-minute audiobook, but it has some pretty epic narrators. So I'll link down below in the description bar the link for the video where John Oliver announced the book, because I think it's hilarious and wonderful. And I'll also link down where you can buy it on Audible if you're interested. I wouldn't recommend using a credit on it. It's only like $2 for members. But I definitely recommend checking this book out. I really like what John Oliver was doing, and that the proceeds do go to the Trevor Project, which is an amazing organization, and just the message it presents. It's a really cute story, and of course I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. Next up, I have a reread. This is Simon vs. the Homo Sapiens Agenda by Becky Allbertalli. Of course, I reread this in anticipation of the movie Love, Simon, which was amazing, and the book was just as amazing the second time as it was the first time. So if you haven't read Simon vs. the Homo Sapiens Agenda, or read Love, Simon, or heard all of the amazingness that is all of this stuff that's happening right now with this book, then I will explain it for you real quick. So this book follows our main character, Simon Spire, and Simon is in high school, and he is gay, but he hasn't come out yet, and he is in a pen pal relationship with another closeted gay boy at his school, but they're anonymous. They don't know who each other's identities are. And at the beginning of this book, it turns out that Simon left his email open at school, and another person found out that he has this email pen pal relationship and decides to use that to blackmail him to try to get with one of Simon's friends. Sounds super dark. The whole blackmailing thing is definitely dark, but this is such a joyful, wonderful book. The relationship is so pure. It's one of the best OTPs of all time. The relationship is seriously #goals. It's so great. The movie was just as great, so if you're interested in my thoughts about the movie, I do have a review of that up. I also have a review of this from when I originally read it in like 2015 or whenever that was, so I will link that as well for you if you're interested. But basically, this is amazing, and if you haven't read it yet, you should. So the last book I read in the month of March is Piecing Me Together by Renee Watson. This was, of course, a 5 out of 5 stars. This is one of the best books I've read in such a long time. If you like The Hate U Give, I definitely recommend this book. I think you will like it as well. This story basically tackles a girl who is living in Portland, and she lives in kind of a, you know, not greatest part of town. She comes from a poorer background, but she goes to a pretty prestigious upper class school that she got into. I wouldn't say this book is heavy on the plot. We basically just follow our main character's day-to-day life as she kind of figures things out for herself and what it means to be a black girl in today's society. She's just trying to learn to accept herself in the world around her. It's very beautiful. It's very profound. There's so many moments that I just like highlighted and wrote down because I just loved how simplistic but like poignant our main character's voice is. It's really, really exceptional. I'm really disappointed this book isn't getting more hype and more love. It came out about a month before The Hate U Give. Loved everything that Renee Watson did in this book. I think it's beautiful, marvelous, fantastic. You definitely need to read it. I highly, highly recommend reading it. It's so, so good. That's all for today's video. I really appreciate you checking it out. If you enjoyed it, give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already. You should also comment down below. Let me know if you've read any of these books, and if so, what you thought of them. And if you haven't read any of the books, let me know if you're interested in reading any of them. That's all for today's video, like I already said, so I'll see you in my next video. Bye!